Hello, Dan. It is Tuesday night, and it's 8 o'clock, and Beth says it's too early to go to bed, so I thought, well, I'll make a video for you. I know it doesn't exactly rank you high on the list of my priorities, sleep versus videos for Dan, but there it is. I thought I would tell you about Bwana Goes Hunting, my hunting experience over the weekend. So I was out with Rick, who is Duncan's girlfriend's dad, and a family of people whose last name is Majeski, Modjeski, in case you're concerned. They are a Winona family, lots of them. And so we were on a piece of land. It must have been 60 or 70 acres, pretty big. Lots of bluffs, lots of hillsides, lots of forest. And Marshall, go do the homework first, ice cream second. The land actually belonged to a woman named, who I think introduced herself as Nani, or Nona, or Nani, Nona, Nini, Nani, no. She is in her 90s, and she is the family matriarch, and she owns all the land. Then there was her son, Jerry, who is the dad of everybody else who was there. He's 71. And then there were three brothers, three of Jerry's sons, Matt and Mark and Fran. And then Fran had two kids, actually three kids out there, two of whom were hunting, Jacob and Casey. Casey was a girl, she's 17, Jacob was 15, and then Ian, his youngest son, who was just out along for the fun, as well as Will, who is the son of another brother who wasn't there hunting, and then Rick and I. So I think all told we had about, maybe 6 or maybe 8 shooters, 7 or 8 shooters. So we went out Saturday morning, and we started out by going on stand, and it kind of reminded me a bit of like, I'm going to morning stand, as if somehow it was like Vespers or Matins. It just had a sort of a religious feel to it, you know what I mean? So, and so we did that from, you can shoot legally a half an hour before sunrise until a half an hour after sunset, which honestly is still a little dark at that time because you are limited in the state of Minnesota to shooting a doe or an antlerless buck, meaning a young buck, or if the buck has antlers, it must have at least 4 points on one side. It can have no points on the other, but it has to have at least 4 points on one side. So obviously you have to be able to see what you're shooting before you shoot it. And so we were on morning stand until maybe 9 o'clock. Sunrise was at 6. Hey guys, shush. And we didn't see anything. I didn't even see a squirrel. I saw one bird, and I was freezing, thinking, man, I should have brought a book. So anyway, morning stand. And then what we did is we did coordinated drives the rest of the morning and all afternoon. And what we did is we had essentially 4 people who were called standers. They were, in essence, standing in one spot. And then you had 4 other people who started maybe, half a mile away on another part of the hillside, driving, all walking. So if you took a hillside, we had somebody at the top, somebody middle, top, middle, bottom, and then bottom, and we all walked, sort of like a drill team movement around this hillside, trying to drive the deer towards the standers. Now, of course, the obvious issue which you may see is, so wait a minute, let me get this straight. I am walking towards somebody with a shotgun pointing it in my direction. Anyway, that's what we were doing. And so but during the morning, during that morning stand, one of the brothers, Matt, who also happens to be a game warden in Wisconsin, did get a buck, 10 point, and then Mark, the other brother, got a rather large doe. And it was funny at lunchtime because Nona came up, got out of the Suburban. She was with her, I guess, granddaughter-in-law, and walks around with her cane, inspecting the two dead deer. It was very funny. Then we did a big family photo, and Rick and I were invited to be in it, which I thought was really cool. So Saturday continues during the drives. We get nothing during these drives, and man, I'm serious. We are walking. I've walked miles and miles and miles up and down the side across the hills. My legs were very tired. The family, the Majeski family, was incredibly gracious. I'd never hunted before, but they were really nice, very welcoming, I just really enjoyed their company, and I enjoyed the whole culture of it. So that night, we went to a different place, and I went onto a deer stand, which is probably 20 feet up. And this was one that Fran and his son Jacob had been on earlier in the day, or Fran and his son Ian had been on earlier in the day. And it was a nice stand with a gun rail, meaning it had kind of a railing all the way around it, so you could rest the gun on it. And I think I've already told you that this is a shotgun only, or handgun. There's no rifles allowed. So I was up there, and it was right on the edge of a cornfield, and then it was like the first tree in from the cornfield, and then the hill dropped rapidly away from the cornfield. And it was right kind of at a little corner where the forest kind of wrapped around this cornfield and dropped away in all directions. But the wind was absolutely howling. It was like 35-mile-an-hour gusts. And so I was sitting up in this thing kind of hugging this tree, but the stand was oriented so that you would be sitting facing the cornfield. So, of course, I was trying to stay facing into the wind because you expect the deer to come, from upwind. So I was watching down this hillside. I did see a doe and a fawn, but it was probably 125 yards away. And they say with a rifled barrel or rifled slugs, you can get 80 yards accurately with a scope. And this shotgun that Glenn lent to me did have a scope on it. So, this was, I think I got up there like at 3 o'clock or 3:30, and 4:30 rolls around. 5 o'clock is when I see that doe and that fawn, and then about 5:30, I turn to stretch, and I look out in the cornfield, and lo and behold, there is a doe, what I think is a doe, right there in the cornfield. So I lined it up with a scope, and got the shotgun on the rail, and remember to take the safety off, and I shoot it. Now you want to aim for the heart, which is almost directly above, the foreleg. I could tell instantly that I hit it, but I knew that I hit it low left, more like in the gut area. And it immediately ran off into the woods. I was like, oh, well, crap. So, I climbed down out of the tree stand, of course putting my gun on safety first, and then Rick hears it because he's not very far away from me. He comes out of the woods, and we end up looking for blood signs. So we find a little bit of blood and fur where I thought I had hit it, and then end up going into the woods, and we find more blood, and then we were able to trail it down the hill towards this this creek ravine, and we got pretty close, and then we lost it the trail due to really darkness. So anytime you gut shoot a deer, from what I learned afterwards, is you're always better off just letting it lay. You let it lay down. Don't keep chasing it, and it will eventually lay down and obviously bleed out. So so we ended up leaving that night. The next morning we get out there bright and early, half an hour before sunrise, and we were actually about 15 minutes earlier than that yet. So we sit in the truck and we wait. Finally, it's time to go out and get on the morning stand. We get out of the truck, and Carew forgot his shotgun at home. So Rick ends up going on morning stand. I take his truck and I head back into town. It was probably, because it's another 10 minutes at least past Keith, Virginia. So, round trip, it was like 45 minutes. So I get back out there and I go down and I find a spot. This time I got a book though, and I didn't see anything at all during morning stand. So after that, Rick comes and gets me, and we go and we start tracking the deer again. Now this time Jerry's with us, a couple of the kids, Ian and Will, and we start tracking it. We track it down, and sometimes you lose the blood trail altogether because it's not like it's one constant bloodstream, right? It's just like a drop here, and maybe 10 feet later a drop there. And you have to make an educated guess as to where you think the most likely route the deer will take is. And they typically take the path of least resistance. So we followed it down the hill and got all the way to the bottom of the ravine, and then we lose it. And it's like, well, it must have gone up. So we start scrabbling up the other side, and we end up finding it another 75 yards up the other side. And in fact, I had gut shot it. It didn't look like it had died until sometime Sunday morning because it was still pretty warm inside. So at that point, I pull my hunting knife out and I gut it. And that was actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was actually rather interesting once you start looking at the anatomy and the guts, and you start working. You look at you look at the lungs and the heart, and then right along the gut here is where the tenderloin is, just like you would, like a beef or a pork tenderloin would be. There's sort of a tubular shaped meat. In fact, that is what that is right there, if you can see it in the bag. And so it turned out to be not a doe, but what is called a button buck, meaning it had little buttons of where the antlers were eventually going to be coming out, but they hadn't broken through the skin yet. So it was like a yearling buck, and so it wasn't real heavy, probably 60 pounds, 80 pounds, not real big. And so we what am I trying to say? So I completely gutted it, and then what you do is you end up propping the rib cage open with a stick to help the meat, the insides to dry out. I mean, not to dry, to cool off. And then you literally wrap a rope around its head and you drag it up the hill to where you can get it into the back of the truck. So then you tag it, you do all that. So then we went and hunted the rest of the day, did several more drives, and actually ended up flushing out a couple more deer, one a really big doe, probably 200 pounds at least, and then another button buck, which one of the other brothers got. And that was actually during the drive. We were actually the drivers, not the standers, and we came across it. And it was an interesting experience when you've got a deer between you and the other guy, and the guy's shooting at it. And, I mean, it wasn't quite right between us, but I could see literally the slug coming out the other side of the deer. So very interesting experience. But anyway, so we, with the tenderloins, those you can actually butcher those right out in the field. So you cut those right out and throw them in a bag and throw them in your cooler. The rest of it we took to a butcher, and he rendered it down to steaks and roasts. And we also got what are called trimmings. So it's all the rest of the meat that you couldn't actually make into a steak or a roast. And I'm going to get summer sausage and beef sticks made out of it. Not beef sticks, but deer sticks. So anyway, it was really overall a very interesting sort of, almost call it like a Zen-like experience, because it's not like I was having a great time and it wasn't like fun. It was just fulfilling in a sense. We weren't running. Even after I shot it, you don't run after it. Everything was slow, everything was coordinated, everything was intentional. And again, I like all these guys' attitudes, because they weren't, they all eat deer. They're not there just to shoot them. It's just part of I don't know. What they call it in Lion King? Circle of life. So, Hakuna Deer Frittata or something. So, anyway, that's my great hunting story. I think we'll probably go out again this weekend, because I had a bonus tag and a regular deer tag. So, but Beth is going to Texas Thursday morning. She'll be back Sunday. So, but that's a story for another video. So, until I talk to you again in Winona, I am like my deer, still dead.